now we're having a confirmation that, well, Israel is actually canceling certain operations in Lebanon because of this prospect of a ceasefire. Yesterday, well, they did the opposite of anything to do with a ceasefire. They sent a warning to the citizens, all the citizens of Baalbek. Baalbek is a location with ancient history in Lebanon, and Israel is threatening to take down the whole thing. Now they're threatening everyone there. And that came simultaneously with the talks about a ceasefire. But now we have confirmations coming from Israel that no, actually, there is, a genuine prospect of a ceasefire here. And Israel is canceling certain campaigns when it comes to Lebanon. And when we say certain campaigns, by the way, that means, campaigns to destroy homes or kill civilians. Because, they're not doing anything when it comes to Hezbollah that would stop Hezbollah or dramatically or to a significant level take down their abilities to fight this genocide entity. And today we had a statement coming from top figures in Israel saying that we took down 70% of Hezbollah's drone capabilities. So how are you counting exactly the drones that are remaining from Hezbollah? I mean, this is one thing that I would like to know. How are Israelis counting what's left? Do they have access to where these drones are, and if they do, well, they actually go and follow them and target them, right? But again, we're having more and more statements that are highlighting the accomplishments of Israel to potentially, try and justify or prepare it in the public opinion, especially in Israel, that we might reach a ceasefire sometime soon. But we had this article here in the Israeli newspaper Israel Hayom, and they are talking about this. In the shadow of the negotiations for the settlement in the north, an offensive operation planned in Lebanon was suspended. One of the IDF's associations received an order to launch an attack in southern Lebanon, but its mission has been suspended at the moment and is being re-examined in the shadow of the negotiations on the settlement of the northern border. They continued. An IDF spokesperson said the IDF is fighting in several arenas at the same time and is working to achieve the goals of the war in accordance with the directives of the political level. As is known, progress was recently made in the negotiations for the settlement in the north. Netanyahu and Dermer formulated principles for Israeli agreement to the settlement. And today, the Prime Minister met with the American mediator between Israel and Lebanon, Amos Hochstein, and with the American envoy for the Middle East Affairs, Brett McGurk. The Prime Minister's announcement after the meeting stated that the Prime Minister made it clear that the main issue is not the paperwork of this or that agreement, but Israel's ability and determination to enforce the agreement and thwart any threat to its security from Lebanon in a way that will return our residents safely to their homes. The talks that we're hearing now are an implementation of the 1701 resolution, which came to life after the 2006 war, that Israel was constantly breaching. As a matter of fact, when it comes to 1701, that Israel is so keen on enforcing on Lebanon, and is, of course, asking for certain amendments, but they have nothing in terms of leverage to use against the Lebanese resistance or Lebanon as a whole, due to their military humiliation and defeat that they are facing in South Lebanon and other locations by the Islamic resistance in Lebanon, and the fact that they are able to conduct actions against Israel on a day-to-day basis. And when we say actions, we're talking about 20, 30, 40 operations a day, record numbers. Each time we have a new record of the number of operations, and use strategic missiles and introduce new weapons and continuously expand when it comes to Israel. Israel, as a matter of fact, breached the 1701 resolution 39,000 times. 39,000 breaches by invading Lebanon's airspace, gathering information, certain limited ground invasions that were recorded by the United Nations and by the Lebanese army, and of course by the Lebanese resistance. They had complaints that it's not being enforced in Lebanon, and no, Hezbollah shouldn't be here, shouldn't be there. And of course they, with their typical entitled, arrogant behavior, want to do whatever it takes to, protect their freedom of action. They like to call it the freedom of action. We can fly anywhere we like. We can bomb anything we like. So we can protect our citizens. They like to always say that. But again, they have no cards. What are the cards? They're destroying certain villages. And of course, the Lebanese people, or at least the resistance supporting Lebanese people, are very similar to the people of Gaza in that case. You're talking about people who sacrificed previously, who had experience with Israel, who know what Israel is and what it has been about. And they know who they are dealing with. And you're not talking about people who give up very easily. Now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to introduce certain things, certain amendments to 1701 that would guarantee Israeli freedom of operation inside of Lebanon. But again, that's something that's being rejected outright by the person leading the negotiations from the Lebanese part, Nabih Berri, and of course the Lebanese resistance led by Hezbollah. So Israel is, at least when it comes to negotiations, the fact that we are talking about this and 1701 is being mentioned in Israel is climbing down the ladder. Why? Because, well, 2 weeks ago you were saying we want to destroy Hezbollah. You were on a high after the assassinations you've been conducting against certain leading figures, including the Secretary General as well. And you were looking towards full enforcement of the Israeli will, of the Zionist will in Lebanon, including people in Israel talking about settlements in Lebanon, because, they started to dig and they found out that, there are biblical mentions in about South Lebanon. So they need to settle there. It's part of the greater Israel. And why not? Why the hell not? So clearly we're having talks, and these talks are directly connected with Gaza. There was a notion that Hezbollah, and that was clarified by the previous late Secretary General Said Hassan Nasrallah before his assassination, that we are, or the following, if I'm not mistaken, Secretary General Naim Qassem, that we are facing a new situation, new reality, where there is an outright all-out war on Lebanon, and our priority is to get a ceasefire with Lebanon, without mentioning whether they will tie that with a ceasefire in Gaza or not. However, they said that we need to have a ceasefire, and then we will elaborate when it comes to our position. Now, Hezbollah's political approach and their approach when it comes to negotiations is not to be underestimated. They are experts when it comes to negotiations. In 2006, when they kidnapped 2 bodies of Israeli soldiers, they did not tell Israel whether they were dead or alive up until they closed the deal when it comes to a prisoner swap between Israel and Lebanon. Now, they will have the same approach when it comes to negotiations. It's not like they're going to give in quickly or give information for free. And they're using the fact that they are able to inflict damage on Israel and continue and expand their operations as part of their negotiations. Because Israel is the side that only tries to talk under fire, under inflicting fire on the other side. Previously, Hamas told them, and that's why to this day we don't have a ceasefire. We're not willing to close anything when we are being attacked. That's why we're not going to talk about a temporary ceasefire, and we're not going to talk about anything up until we have guarantees that we are talking about a full out ceasefire, Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, getting the people everywhere back, getting all of the aid in, and rebuilding Gaza. And the two things are tied. This could indicate that Hezbollah already tied the ceasefire when it comes to Lebanon with Gaza. That's why you have intense back and forth meetings with the negotiating delegations of Israel and the other countries too, in Doha and in Egypt as well, and in Cairo as well. So we are talking about an advanced period when it comes to negotiations. However, and we spoke about this intensively yesterday, that does not guarantee that we are looking to get to a ceasefire, because we've had many periods previously where there were many indications that we were about to reach a ceasefire. However, they ended up completely disappearing, especially following Benjamin Netanyahu and his will and desire to continue the war. And we cannot ignore the fact that, well, Iran hasn't responded yet. Does that mean they're not going to respond? Well, we're getting more and more information. Now we have this here. Sources reveal when Iran will attack. A high-ranking source revealed to CNN when Iran will respond to the recent Israeli attack, adding that it will be a definitive and painful retaliation. This is resonating with a statement that was quoted on one of the advisors of the Supreme Leader of Iran, Sayyid Ali Khamenei. The response of the Islamic Republic of Iran to the aggression of the Zionist regime will be definitive and painful, the source who is familiar with Iran's deliberations said. He added that it will likely come before the US presidential elections on November the 5th, without providing an exact date. Earlier on Wednesday, Iranian Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh stated that any attack on Iranian territory, even a single bullet, would be unforgivable, adding that Iran would respond forcefully to any aggression. And then we, of course, had more responses, and they actually quoted the person that I was speaking about here, Muhammad Mohammadi Golpayegani, a senior aide to the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as quoted by Tasnim news agency, said the recent action of the Israeli Zionist regime in attacking parts of our country was a desperate move, and the Islamic Republic of Iran will give it a harsh and regretful response. So what are we hearing from Iran now? Not that we are gonna attack Israel in the appropriate date, time, and way. We are hearing that a response is now just coming, and it's gonna be painful, and they are going to regret it. There was another report here about Israeli intelligence suggesting that Iran is preparing to carry out a major attack on Israel in the coming days, possibly again before the US presidential elections, according to Axios, citing two Israeli sources. Iran is expected to carry out the attack from Iraqi territory using its proxies and not directly, which could be an attempt to avoid another potential retaliatory attack by Israel. The attack will be carried out from Iraq using a large number of drones and ballistic missiles, the report added. Now, of course, this report, if it's being quoted based on Israeli sources, you take it with a pinch of salt, and also the notion that it might come from Iraqi territories, although you can have some sort of a backing to that, because the United States allowed Israel to use the airways that they use in Iraq to conduct an attack, because no Israeli plane went into Iranian territory. They conducted the attack from outside of the Iranian airspace, because the Iranian air defense systems are very powerful, and they took down the majority of the projectiles and the missiles that were launched from these fighter jets of Israel from within Iraqi airspace. However, the fact that the attack happened in Iran indicates, based on the previous pattern of Iranian responses, that the retaliation to this aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran will come from Iranian territories. Why? Because the attack in April was a response to an attack that happened outside of Iranian territories that Iran deemed to be, well, Iranian territories in accordance to international law. When you talk about consulates or embassies being attacked, you are talking about sovereign locations that belong to the state. So Iran had to respond directly. And of course, with the attack in October, it was a retaliation against an attack conducted in Iran. So now we have an outright and a large attack, blatant attack, that Israel took responsibility for on Iran. So the likelihood of Iran retaliating directly from Iranian soil is higher than all other likelihoods of Iran conducting an attack from anywhere else, which leads me to the second point. Here we're talking about Iran, Russia to sign a comprehensive treaty soon. Russia and Iran will sign a treaty that will include a closer defense cooperation, and according to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, the treaty on a comprehensive strategic partnership between Russia and Iran that is being prepared will become a serious factor in strengthening Russian-Iranian relations, Lavrov tells state television cited by Reuters. He added that the agreement is being prepared to be signed in the near future. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian is expected to visit Moscow before the end of this year. It will confirm the parties' desire for closer cooperation in the field of defense and interaction in the interests of peace and security at the regional and global levels, Lavrov said, without specifying the details. This is a very significant update coming from Iran and Russia, and we also had this being reported in the Moscow Times about this treaty in the near future. And they added here, both under heavy Western sanctions, Russia and Iran have strengthened their ties since Moscow's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, with Iran widely believed to be supplying Russia with weapons. Last week, President Vladimir Putin, who has called Russian-Iranian relations a priority for his country, invited Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian to visit Russia to sign a comprehensive cooperation agreement. The treaty is being prepared for signing in the near future, Lavrov said at a Eurasian Security Summit in Belarus. It will affirm both parties' commitment to a closer defense cooperation and collaboration for regional global peace and security. Last week, Russian lawmakers ratified a similar strategic partnership treaty with North Korea amid widespread reports that thousands of North Korean troops were sent to help Russia in its fight against Ukraine. Western governments have accused Iran of providing drones and missiles to Russia, charges Tehran denies. The EU imposed sanctions on Iran over the suspected supply of drones for the Russian military. What are the Western governments worried exactly about? Russia is not committing a genocide in Ukraine. It's Israel committing a genocide in Palestine and in Lebanon now, and they're outright providing it with aid. So look, yeah, like they say, if your house is from glass, don't throw stones at other people's houses. However, what I wanted to talk about when it comes to this treaty, a lot of things would depend on the type of treaty that we're talking about. Here they mentioned the North Korean treaty. When it comes to North Korea and Russia, they have a defense pact. That's why now we have reports of North Korea sending troops to help Russia in Ukraine to fight the US-backed Zelensky regime. And any country that has a defense pact with another country means that they are supporting them in any war that is being conducted against them, or in any sort of defense action that both countries have. The question is, will Iran and Russia have a defense pact? If they have a defense pact, this is the most strategic of all pacts that two countries can have together. As a matter of fact, a defense pact is something that the United States administration offered Israel for a very long time. Now, you might ask yourself, why doesn't the US have a defense pact with Israel now? Well, it's because Israel wants to get everything from the US, but they don't necessarily want to listen to the US when it comes to many things, nor help the US if the US needs them. That's why they don't have a defense pact together. But if Russia and Iran have a defense pact, then you are talking about a different level of collaboration. Now, so far, we have seen things that can be considered strategic between Russia and Iran, especially with the fact that Russia is openly supporting Iran with military aid. When it comes to their defense, when it comes to their preparation, when it comes to making sure that they are secure against an Israeli attack or a potential American attack on Iranian territories. And likewise, when it comes to Iran, Iran is a big exporter when it comes to drones and UAVs. We have reports that they have millions of them, and they indeed also helped Russia with them. So we have a level of strategic cooperation already there. This indicates that there is a very high likelihood of us seeing a defense pact between Iran and Russia. Why? Because, well, what's the next level after such strategic relationship already between Iran and Russia that has been nurtured very much in recent years, especially with increased hostile approaches from the United States administration and its global proxies, whether when it comes to NATO or Israel. A likelihood of such a defense pact is indeed there. And if we do have this defense pact between Iran and Russia, then we are looking at a new reality. We are looking at a situation where if Iran is attacked, we can have direct Russian participation to defend Iran, not only support Iran by weapons and technology, but actually participate with Iran to thwart any attack or any potential attack coming on Iran, especially after they have retaliation to Israel's aggression that happened recently in Iran. And the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the fact that at the moment, when it comes to the situation in Gaza, we are also talking about increased resistance when it comes to the Palestinian resistance. We had more activities coming today, in particular from Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas against Israeli forces. And these actions coming from the Palestinian resistance are happening in multiple parts of Gaza. Now, with the talks about a potential ceasefire, like I said, these will most likely be tied with Lebanon, because although Israel and the United States worked very hard from the beginning to separate the fronts fighting against Israel, they failed. We had a participation in the beginning from Hezbollah, then Yemen, then Iraq, and then, of course, Iran went in directly, and they were offered very attractive packages. Hezbollah were warned, and they were also offered other stuff if they cut the tie with Gaza. Yemen, Ansarullah, they were offered billions, and they were also offered international recognition only if they lift the embargo that they are imposing on Israel in the Red Sea. They tried to have certain deals with the Iraqi resistance too, but again, all of them failed. And even with Iran, and Iran being a state officially, out of all of these resistance fronts, Iran being the only official state out of them, you're talking about a massive failure. Again, all of these indicate that the axis of resistance or the alliance of the resistance is solid, is unbreakable. And if we were to have any sort of ceasefire, it would have to include all of them. And that, even if it happens, it will not necessarily stop Iran from having a retaliatory strike against the genocide state.